Good afternoon. I'm on Google Maps once again, and anybody who has been following and I'm homing in Belfast here, anybody who has been following my YouTube videos of late must have seen quite a number of videos that are dealing with Belfast and beyond street names. And this is the Belvoir Estate just outside Belfast, up near Forest Side. Belvoir Estate, probably built from the early 60s, at least the main drive was, and it was out in the countryside, and the closest shops were at Supermac. Remember Supermac? Again, where Forest Side is now. So this is Belvoir Estate, and whenever you look at Belvoir Estate, you probably are saying to yourself, where does the name Belvoir come from? Well, the name Belvoir comes from the man who built Belvoir House in the forest, where the RSPB place and the car park is. And he was called Arthur Hill, and his mother named the house Belvoir House. And because she had spent many happy childhood days in Ballycastle, Grantham in England, and that's why Belvoir House was named Belvoir House, or so we believe. But there's also another explanation given by some people about Belvoir Estate and where the name came from. Belvoir, or actually it's an amalgamation of two French words, belle and voir, meaning to a beautiful and beautiful to see. So some people say that that's the explanation for Belvoir Estate too. When it was built in the early 60s, it was one of the biggest housing estates in the whole of Western Europe. I don't know whether it would still be judged that today, but it's pretty big. But have you ever looked at the street names in Belvoir Estate? There's 13 main street names, and none of them are streets. There's Belvoir Drive, and there's crescents, and there's roads, and there's parks, but there's no streets. But there's 13 basic names, and all the drives and closes and parks and avenues are all come from those 13 basic names. So if you look carefully, and I'll blow this up again, we've got 13 names. We've got Archdale, Dramart, Dunseverick, Kilwarlen, Kilnether, Grays Park, Downhill, Castlehume, Castledon, Castleward, Castlecool, Castlerobin and Castleboy. And I wonder if any of you have seen the link between all of these names given in Belvoir Estate, or given to avenues and streets and roads in Belvoir Estate. There is a link. All of the names that I have just read out are historical place names throughout Northern Ireland. And many of them today are actually connected to the National Trust. Places like Castlecool, Kilnether, Castleward, and there's several others I just can't remember at the minute. Oh, Grays Park, all connected and run by the National Trust today. So we're going to look at each of these names individually, and maybe a wee photograph and a wee talk about where the historical name came from. Castle Archdale was built as a castle in 1615 by John Archdale, and we find it down near Irvingstown in County Fermanagh. The castle was burnt down and destroyed several times, but it dates from 1615 and it's no longer there. Obviously, this is the ruins of the castle. The outbuildings now serve as an information centre and tea rooms, and I think there's maybe a museum there too. But interestingly, during World War II, 2,500 troops, some of them, many of them American servicemen, were based there because Castle Archdale was a major flying boat base for both Catalinas and Sunderland aircraft. So that's Castle Archdale. And anybody who's been in Belvoir and is looking for shops, you'll find them in Drumart Square. Drumart comes from the Old Irish, meaning high ridge, and there's 19 townlands named Drumard. So it's quite a common Irish place name. This is all that remains of Dunseverick Castle, County Antrim, on the north coast near the Giant's Causeway, and it was given to the National Trust in 1962. This castle was at the end of a major royal highway back in the 5th century and beyond. In the 5th century, it was reputedly visited by St Patrick. We have Kilwarlen Moravian Church, dating from 1755. And Kilwarlen it's a little village, and it lies just outside Hillsborough. So rather than having a picture of the village, I thought we'd have a picture of the Moravian Church. And I must get down there to do a video of this church. And where does Killynether come from? Well, if anybody knows Newtownards, just in underneath Scrabo Tower, beside Scrabo Golf Club, is Killynether Forest. And at one time in Killynether Forest was Killynether House, and it was a grand, imposing house, Victorian Tudor mansion. And it was built in 1858, but unfortunately it succumbed to dry rot, and it was left empty, and then it succumbed to vandalism, and the dry rot continued, so it was actually demolished. And this is all that remains of Castle Robin on White Mountain, just along a wee bit from Divis and the Black Mountain. The castle was rebuilt in 1579, but there had been previous mottes and ancient Celtic settlements on this spot. An earlier O'Neill fort at the same site. So that's Castle Robin. Earl Bishop Frederick Harvey, 4th Earl of Bristol, built this elegant country house that now lies in ruins near the cliff top, and beside the cliff top he built a library which we now call Mussenden Temple. It's run by the National Trust, and this library was modelled on the Temple of Vesta in Rome. So there's Downhill, another National Trust property. This is Loch Earn Resort down in County Fermanagh, and Castle Hume was an old, long gone house near the golf course here. The old house was built in 1727, and the only remnants of it now are an 18th century pigeon house. This is Castle Dillon House. The estate dates from 1610, when there was a castle and a bawn. John Dillon of Staffordshire at one time looked after 6,000 acres round here, and we find this in County Armagh. Not sure whether the old house is still up or not. This is another National Trust property. This is Castle Ward. It dates from 18th century. It's near the tip of the Ards Peninsula, overlooking Strangford Lough. It's the home of the Ward family from 1570 onwards. The Tower House dates from 1610. This current building dates from 1760, and the area around here and the grounds and the tower and Audley's Castle and all the rest of it were used as a Game of Thrones location for the Winterfell family. This is the superb Castle Cool down in Fermanagh again. The estate was bought in 1656, and this is a neoclassical mansion, and the house here was built over the years 1789 through to 1798, and the estate round it runs to 1200 acres. Superb place, National Trust. Go and see it in the summertime. This is the town land of Castleboy or St Johnstone, and it's in the centre of the Ards Peninsula with Strangford Lough in to the left and the RIC out to the right. And I'll make it a little bit bigger actually. So there it is. It has a 15th century, it has the remains of a 15th century tower house, and it's situated close to the seaside resort of Cloghy. It was a preceptory of St John the Baptist and was founded by Hugh de Lacy in 1189. I'm on the last avenue. This is Gray's printing press. I think it's just outside Strabane, and it dates from the 18th century, and at one time Gray's printing press, now run by the National Trust, was reputed in the 18th century as being the capital of Ireland's publishing. So there you are now. That's the streets of the avenue, streets, closes, roads, etc., etc. of Belvoir Estate, all named after significant, important locations, and they're mostly now all tourist locations around Northern Ireland, and many of them dating from the early 1600s.